All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible stories in business history. We're talking about a boom and a bust so huge, so complete that it nearly wiped an entire industry clean off the map. We're pulling from research material by Dr. Sudheendra S G, and it's this amazing case study, especially if you're a teacher or an educator, trying to explain how a market can just blow up and then completely fall apart.
I mean, think about it now. Video games are everywhere, right? But what if I told you they almost vanished forever? Seriously, back in 1983, the whole thing was on life support. So the big question is, how? How does something that popular just break? Well, that's what we're going to figure out.
Okay, so before we can get to the crash, you've got to understand the boom that came first, because it was massive. We're talking the early 80s, and video games just exploded. This wasn't some niche hobby anymore. No, this was the center of the universe for kids, and it happened like overnight.
So just how big are we talking? Get this. By 1982, there were 24,000 arcades in the US alone. To put that into perspective for you, that's more locations than McDonald's had at the time. Yeah, let that sink in. This industry had a huge physical footprint.
And what was inside all those arcades? 1.5 million arcade cabinets. Can you even imagine the amount of investment, the manufacturing, the pure logistics behind that? This was an absolutely colossal industry, all built on the backs of giants like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, you know the ones.
And the demand? Oh, it was just staggering. In 1981 alone, just 1 year, Time magazine reported that people fed 20 billion quarters into those machines. That's $5 billion. In quarters, people weren't just playing, they were totally obsessed, pouring in their money and time. And this whole craze, it wasn't just stuck in the arcades. Oh no. It spilled out into, well, everywhere. All of a sudden, you've got blockbuster movies like Tron. You've got Pac-Man's Saturday morning cartoons. You've got lunchboxes, bed sheets, you name it. It was a full-blown cultural phenomenon.
But you know how it is. When something grows that big, that fast, problems start to creep in. The growth was exciting, for sure, but it was also reckless. It was totally unchecked, and the cracks in the foundation were definitely starting to show.
Here's what was happening. Consumers were getting hit from two sides. On one hand, you had this flood of different consoles, Atari, ColecoVision, Intellivision. It was just confusing. And on the other hand, you had the rise of home computers, like the Commodore 64. And people started thinking, why buy a box that only plays games when I can get a computer that does that and other stuff? All of a sudden, the game consoles started to look kind of limited.
And this is where things really went off the rails. Quality control, it just fell apart. To keep feeding this hungry beast of a market, companies started slashing development time like crazy. So a game that might have taken 6 months to make in 1980, by 1982, they were cranking them out in just 6 weeks. And you can guess the result. A flood of awful, buggy, just plain bad games. So you've got all this greed, this rush, this collapsing quality, and it all comes to a head in one single catastrophic moment. I'm talking about a game that became the symbol, the poster child for the entire crash. E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial.
Now, Atari paid a fortune, a massive $21 million, just for the rights to use the E.T. name. The movie was the biggest thing on the planet, and Atari was betting the entire farm that the game would be just as huge. I mean, the stakes just could not have been any higher.
But here's the crazy part, the fatal flaw. To get this game on the shelves in time for Christmas, they gave the developer an impossible deadline. Just 5 weeks. 5 weeks to design, code, and test a game of this magnitude. It was, a complete recipe for disaster. And the game that came out, oh, it was awful. Confusing, frustrating, pretty much unplayable. The financial hit was just mind-blowing. Atari made 5 million of these cartridges. They only sold 1 million. That left them with 4 million unsold copies of one of the biggest failures in business history.
So what do you do with millions of unsold game cartridges? Well, what Atari did next is now the stuff of legend. To basically hide their shame and get rid of the evidence, they backed up a bunch of trucks and dumped all of them in a landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico. A literal burial for a video game. You really can't find a better metaphor for the crash, can you? So, okay, what's the takeaway here? What can we learn from all this? If you're a student, or especially an educator trying to teach about business cycles or marketing,
This story is an absolute goldmine. It's the perfect cautionary tale. The crash wasn't just the end of something. It was this painful but totally necessary reset button for the whole industry.
And Dr. Sudheendra S G's research really boils it all down to 4 key lessons. First, quality is everything. Second, don't saturate your own market. Third, innovate, but do it strategically. And fourth, think long-term. Don't just chase a quick buck. And you know who learned these lessons? Nintendo. This is the exact playbook they used to bring the entire industry back from the dead. When you get right down to it, the crash was the end of what you could call the Wild West of gaming. It was over. The industry was forced to finally grow up. It had to create standards, start licensing things properly, and maybe, most importantly, it had to start respecting the people actually buying the games.
But here's the thing. This whole pattern, the rapid boom, the oversaturation, the nosedive in quality, that's not just a history lesson. It's a cycle that repeats itself. So I'll leave you with this question. When you look around today, what Wild West industry do you see that's just booming with hype and might be headed for its very own burial in a New Mexico landfill?